maybe we can get Emmanuel onto the stream.
To join us.
Exactly.
Yes.
Hey!
Hello,
Hey, Emmanuel.
Let's see that everything is working and we
Hello.
can hear each other.
Hello, yes.
We can
Loud
hear you
and
loud
clear.
and
Yeah.
I think that's the start of every conversation. Good
Absolutely.
afternoon from Melbourne.
Hello.
Yeah,
Oh, good
typically
morning
it starts
from-
with, you're on mute.
Yeah, exactly. Good morning from the Netherlands in this case.
Yeah, it's hard traversing through times and making sure you're greeting people correctly. It's good to be here.
It's fantastic to see you.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited for your talk. You said about traversing time zones. Well, you're going to be talking about traversing different languages and cultures in websites.
Exactly, and it's not only for websites. If anybody is doing an app or any other software, it's all going to match in there, and it's going to see how you can take these concepts. Maybe they will be. We're talking about a bit about Umbraco, but where you can implement it across other platforms and other software and other apps and stuff like that. So let's see how we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So I'm excited. We'll get all of the ammo that we need to convince our bosses, right, and our teammates that a localized site really matters to all of the people that do not speak English, which is like a lot of people, y'all.
Over 6 billion people in the world that don't speak English. I obviously coming from the UK, we live in our own little bubble and we just think that that's the world. But I'm very fortunate when I come to countries like this where you do speak English.
Yes.
That's not most of the world.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to this
Yes.
session. It's something that I think maybe a lot of sites don't consider unless they absolutely have to. So yeah, having maybe localized first builds
like
going
that.
forward.
Exactly.
I like
So
that.
not mobile first, not desktop first, but
Localized
localization.
first.
All of those as well.
Yeah.
All the above. All right, Emmanuel, whenever you're ready.
Yes.
Exactly. Just before I go, and not to make it awkward, will you guys be around when I'm doing my talk? Because I might put a few questions to you, because usually this is very interactive and I don't want to have some participation. And I might want you guys to help me put some links on the chat as well, because I can't see the chat right now.
Yeah, of course. We'll be here monitoring the chat, and if you want to throw a question over to us, just shout and we'll come back.
Yeah.
We'll be here
Yeah,
all the
that's
way.
good. Yeah, and I think I picked my targets now, so let's see how it goes.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good luck. You
Let me
have
first
the
share my
floor.
screen, and yeah.
Yeah, we'll see you on the other side. I see a lot of excitement in the chat already,
Yes.
so that's nice. Like, people are excited about this topic.
Are you guilty of any localization crimes? Let's find out. Good evening from Australia, and thank you for attending this session. This talk is meant to be interactive, so please participate. I've roped in the host to participate as well. And for everybody else, you can use a chat to respond, and our host may be able to relay your responses across. गिल्ट्यानु गोलीयकरणीय जात्यंतकरणीय प्रादेशीयकरणीय सहपरिवर्तनीय. Say what? How many of you understood what I just said? I'll take a wild guess that none or only a very few of you did understand what I said. There are over 7,000 languages spoken worldwide. I read, write, and speak Sinhala. But I made an incorrect assumption that my audience, that's you, would understand Sinhala. That brings us to guilt. Are you guilty of the same crime I just committed? Do you build a website or software in English and expect your entire audience to understand what you have given them? I'm here to take you on a guilt trip. Anyone here know the meaning of this acronym? If you do, leave a thumbs up on the chat. GILT stands for Globalization, Internationalization, Localization, and Translation. We will be doing a deep dive into these concepts shortly. I'm Emmanuel Tissera. I've been in software and web development for over 18 years now. I've been with Luminary for the past 5 years, and I'm loving every minute of it. My past exploits include localizing skywards into 23 languages. The current estimated world population is 7.8 billion people. 1.3 billion of these people speak English as a first or second language. But there are 6.5 billion, or 84%, who don't speak English well or not at all. English is a barrier to them. The most common languages other than English are Mandarin, Hindi, Spanish, French, and Arabic. Lord Lamington, a trusted but fictional customer of Luminary, wants to reach this 84% or 6.5 billion people. Lord Lamington wants to increase the sales revenue of his Lamington business. He wants to make sure that he can reach those non-English speakers to sell these super light sponge cakes that are dipped in chocolate and coated in coconut. I'm getting hungry now. He's got physical stores in lots of major cities around the world, even Tokyo. Now, he wants to conquer the rest of the world by increasing online revenue. But before he can embark on this journey, Lord Lamington needs to take a GILT trip with me. But we're going to do what I call a reverse GILT trip, starting with translation and ending with globalization. Translation, also known as T9N, means rendering text from one language to another. For example, good morning is translated to Subha Udayasanak in Sinhala. But translation is not only limited to text. Images, animations, logos, diagrams, and visual effects need to be translated too. So does audio content and video content. Let's have a chat. What does this sign mean to you? Does this image add anything to what the sign is trying to tell you? How about now? Would you walk forward? Would you step on the path ahead? But this is what children in Afghanistan see. They see a sign in English, a language which they cannot read or understand. Not translating content kills people in this case. So remember, translation is important. Localization, or L10N, is about making something local or orienting it locally. A good example from the physical world is a car. In the Netherlands, where you drive on the right, this Ford GT has its steering column on the left-hand side. But in Australia, the car needs to be localized. A mechanic would need to convert the steering column from left to right so that it could be driven easily on Australian roads without the need for a special permit. How would you read this number? Type it in the chat. I'll give you a few seconds. Here in Australia, we read this number as 1,211. How about this number? Maybe I can get Callum to answer if he's around. Yeah, and Callum's answer is 52.368. Thanks, Callum. And is the month on this date October or February? Again, type it out on the chat. Let's see what you come up with. Let's go back to this number. Imagine you were in the Netherlands. The number is 1.211. Here, the comma is used as a decimal separator. How about this number in the same context? 52,368. Yes, the dot is 1,000 or group separator in the Netherlands. And when Callum read it, he read it in the context of a British person reading it. Imagine that you were in the US. This date then would be February 10th, 2020. Format is month, day, and year in the US. The rest of the world, including Australia, use day, month, and year. But in countries like China, Korea, and Iran, the date format is year, month, day. So, is this date the 2nd of March 2012, or the 3rd of February 2012, or the 12th of March 2002? My advice, be very careful with dates or you can land in trouble, especially if it's your wedding anniversary or your partner's birthday. What is internationalization or I-18N? Internationalization is a process of enabling localization for a product from a technical level. Other definition is that internationalization is the isolation of linguistic and cultural data so that localization is performed simply and cheaply. It's not always just linguistic or cultural data which needs to be isolated. Think of the times, especially if you're in Australia, where you have traveled overseas in the last decade and needed to take a travel adapter for your phone charger. How cool is this power supply for the Raspberry Pi? It comes with 4 interchangeable plug types for the EU, US, UK, and Australia. Best of all, it handles the different input voltages across these countries. What made this power supply internationalized was the mechanism which allowed you to switch plugs. Lisa, a now defunct Swiss trade body, stated that as a general rule, that the localization of a product takes twice as long and costs twice as much if it is not properly internationalized. Keep this in mind when you implement a minimal viable product. G11N, or globalization, means to make a global. Globalization is not a task. It's rather a strategy which involves sales and marketing. It's a strategy of bringing a product or service to the global market. As a developer, I can't globalize a product, but I am an enabler and I will explain how shortly. Think of McDonald's. It started out in California back in 1948, selling hamburgers and chips for 15 cents. Then they went global with their speedy service system. McDonald's executed a strategy to have more than 36,000 restaurants around the world. They globalized, internationalized, and localized so that we have Maccas in Australia. When it comes to globalized software, think of operating systems such as Linux, Mac OS, and Windows. Think of the sales and marketing strategy Microsoft worked on to sell Windows in various languages around the world. That was our guilt trip, and Lord Lamington was nodding his head vigorously. That could mean only one thing. A question from Lord Lamington. How do I sell Lamingtons globally? As a developer, globalization is way out of my depth. You need sales and marketing personnel to work on a strategy to go global and sell Lamingtons all over the world. Where I could help with globalization is with the prerequisites. As a developer, I can help with the internationalization and localization of your website. Then you would need translators and proofreaders to help you with the actual translation step. Lord Lamington is a persistent man. Okay, if you can't help me to go global, can you at least let me cater to the top 5 languages in the world other than English? But I want to get this done quickly. So let's go with English only first. We work in an agile environment at Luminary and were able to deliver Lord Lamington's English only site in 2 sprints. We will look at a few code snippets of the site to see where we have skipped internationalization. What is internationalization again? I-18N is the process of enabling a product at a technical level for localization. Our first culprit is a copyright statement all hard-coded in English. How about logo and alt text? This logo has the business name on it, and that's in English. Do we need to internationalize it? Maybe we do. I know that Coca-Cola, Subway, and Starbucks have localized logos. How about currency? Are we only going to sell in US dollars? How about the phone number? How come it's hard-coded too? Then, if we move to the Umbraco back office, we're missing something. The translation section is missing even when I'm logged in as an administrator. We go into the settings section, we can see that only EN/US has been configured. No other languages have been enabled. We have also not allowed document types to be varied by culture. Ditto for properties. So what is culture and what is locale? Locale is the combination of language and culture. If you take EN/AU, for example, EN or English is a language, and AU or Australia is the culture. Locale also feeds into some of the decisions we have to make regarding localization. Do we use a subdomain, a ccTLD, or an URL path? Each of these have their pros and cons, and of course, SEO implications. So choose wisely at the start and stick to it. You also need to decide if you are going to support languages like Arabic, which read right to left. There are design considerations you need to be aware, and you need to decide if you're going to go with separate CSS files or with CSS classes targeting the direction attribute. Another decision, as I alluded to before, is about accepting payments. Are you going to do it in a single currency? Or are you going to convert from local currency to say US dollars? If you're going with multiple currencies, does your payment gateway support it? Have you thought about taxes? We skipped internationalization in the phase one release. Now we are going to internationalize the website so that we can localize it for our customers. Now, my knowledge of Mandarin is zero. So I proposed to Lord Lamington that we do a proof of concept site in a language I understand. Q, a language site for 70 million people who speak Sinhala. Over here, we are pulling the copyright statement from a dictionary item and adding in the year to fill in the placeholder. The logo has been internationalized using a media library file. With currency, I had to skip it as Lord Lamington wanted to only sell in US dollars, and it was a business decision way above my pay grade. The phone number is also internationalized, but the content editor makes the decision not to translate the text, and we still see the 1-800 Lamington number. Translating the number into Sinhala actually makes no sense. In the CMS back office, we also enable the translation section for applicable user groups. We added Sinhala as a language in the back office settings section. We also have now allowed document types to be varied by culture. Ditto for properties. Once we are done with internationalization, you need to localize your content. Here's a sneak peek into the localized content within Umbraco. Similarly, a multilingual site is possible with Umbraco Heartcore. This headless SaaS offering has language variants out of the box. Language variants are baked into all the APIs and the GraphQL implementation. Heartcore does not have the concept of a dictionary as regular Umbraco does, but a dictionary can be easily replicated with a specific content type. Here you see the localized and translated site in Sinhala. Localizing a site in Umbraco seems so easy, but what else do you need to be aware of? Does 18 years in this industry make me an old man or a wise man? I'll let you decide. There are a total of 16 GILT tips, but we have only got time for 3 today. To see the rest, I will give you a link. First pro tip, always have a plan in place. What is your default language? What happens to untranslated content? Which URL format will you use? Document all these decisions related to these questions and make sure you follow them through. When translating text in code never append, it doesn't end well. For example, if you append this sentence to be, I am 18 years old, Sinhala translation will read, Mama dahata vayasa avrudu. That's not grammatically correct in Sinhala. If translated back to English, it would read like, I 18 old years. Always concatenate strings. You might need to train your content editors. It will save you 6 months of rework. I know, I've been there. Don't forget the legal aspects of localization. Remember to follow legal rules and regulations of your new locale. The best example is adhering to GDPR when you expand to the EU. As promised, the pro GILT tips are available on luminary.com/GILT tips. Our host will put these links on the chat too, so you have access to it. Now, are you ready to go and tell your users that your website speaks their language? Remember, GILT is important. Those 6.5 billion people who find English a barrier also need access to vital information. They need to be able to find a doctor, enroll for school, contact family, and even the emergency services. They also need to be able to check if they got paid, pay their taxes, or claim benefits. They need to be able to book a ticket online and arrive at the airport in time. Would you be happy if these services were not available to you? Would you be happy if all these services were in a language you did not understand? But how do you convince your boss that people need this information in their own language? How do you convince your boss to sell tasty lamingtons in another language? How many of you support Internet Explorer on the websites you build? I know it's embarrassing to admit, but our clients do request some sort of support for Internet Explorer. According to StatCounter statistics, Internet Explorer has a 1.2% market share worldwide. Which percentage of people worldwide find English a barrier? That's 84% of the population. Guess which one wins? If you support Internet Explorer, go tell your boss that internationalization and localization should be on top of your list. Once you convince your boss, where do you start? The best place to start is the official V8 documentation. Here are two bit.ly links which will take you directly to language variants and how to render content. Enjoy. That was quite a guilt trip. Take a moment and think where you are on this journey. In conclusion, remember, you are the enabler for internationalization and localization. Go out of your way to be a superhero for those 6.5 billion people who find English a barrier. And now for some Q&A. Yes, that means question and answers. There's no abbreviation in Sinhala.
Wow, that was so fantastic, Emmanuel. We thoroughly enjoyed that. Flora and I were sitting like, here nodding along, going, yep, all of these things.
Or cool, I never thought, or we disagreed on some
the
formats,
maybe. Dutch numbers and, you didn't even discuss postcodes and addresses. That's a whole other bag. I know that we do them weird in the UK, according to Dutch people.
Yeah, and vice versa. So, absolutely. Thank you so much for this talk. This was really insightful, and I love that we started, well, not necessarily started, but still at the beginning of the day that we discussed these kind of topics. So thank you so much. People were discussing in the chat also, whenever you asked a question, the answers were, it was funny to see, especially because people first shared where they were from, and so you could sort of like, I figured it out now. So we got a couple of questions.
Yeah,
do you want to take the questions?
And some fantastic questions there too. So one of the questions was about, is there going to be some kind of balance between localization and sustainability and efficiency? Around the plug, the Raspberry Pi plug that you mentioned, of course, printing 4 different bits of plastic just because someone might at some point need that in another country, or you can then ship the same plug to lots of countries. Is there a way up there of efficiency versus localization?
Sort of a middle ground.
Yeah, middle ground.
Oh, that's a totally valid question, but totally unanticipated from me. The truth there is, what would you do if you don't have that Raspberry Pi, right? You might go and buy 4 chargers for the 4 countries you're going, or you might go and buy another converter somehow to be able to take it around, and that's a bit more larger, has a bit more electronics in it, and I think yes, if you get a lot of these, it's going to be a waste. But again, I think this is still a better way of satisfying things. Now, I totally see that there would be people who would disagree with me, but I think it's a very good solution, allowing for that, and especially just take those plastic parts. Yes, that's one question which would talk about sustainability and what's going to happen to that waste and things like that. But if you take the actual electronics inside it, where it manages the 220 volts and 110 volts, that's awesome, right? You don't need two of those, or like I've done in the past. I've gone and put a US thing and blown it up when I put it into a 220 plug. So that's a bigger waste than not blowing it up.
Very good.
Fair. That's a fair point.
A fantastic answer there, Emmanuel.
Can't argue with well.
We had two other questions that I think were really good, and whilst we're running out of time, I think it's worth addressing them because they are really valid. One of them was, do you have a couple of tips, best practice things that we can start implementing right now, things that we should be doing on our websites, common mistakes?
I think the biggest mistake we make, even when we start an English-only site, is not using resource strings or dictionary items. And I think that's a very basic item, because you're giving power to the content editor wherever you can. Give that power to them. Let them. Don't put it in. You have satellite assemblies in .NET. Don't put it in that so that a developer has to come and change it. Just put it inside the CMS, and Umbraco provides it out of the box. So let them have that from the get-go, which allows them to change even a very simple thing like buy an item now. If you want to change it to something else, let them have it. It may be English, but still give them the power, and which allows for internationalization down the line.
I think that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. This has been a really amazing start to the day. I don't think we could have had any better. And I hope you can go and enjoy your evening now.
Or maybe join us in the chat because I think there's some more questions and maybe people that want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And generally, like, people are congratulating you on your talk, so I think it's nice to, if you have the time or opportunity for it, to join us in the chat and connect with the people there.
And of course, we've shared the links that you gave us. We've shared the links that you gave us, but maybe you want to share them again and have some discussion around them.
I missed a link here and there because it was too quick and I was just still so definitely.
Thanks for that, guys, and it's been great being on, and hope the rest of the day goes well.
Thank you.
Likewise. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too. See ya. Bye.
Okay, so up next in the schedule, we have yet another fantastic talk from a wonderful person, a friend of mine, Tissera. She's going to be talking about her introduction to the Umbraco community. And I believe we have Tissera on the line by the pure magic.
On the line is